Well, hey guys, we've got the two versions of the 911 in the drive. The GT3, which is the 991 version 2, and the 992, which is the latest version of 911. But today I wanted to take the advantage, since I've got both cars sitting here, just to chat a little bit about the differences between a GT3 car and a 991 GT3 car and the latest 992, because they have made some major progress with the 992 in terms of capturing a lot of the GT3 elements. So I suppose we should really start by saying I think the GT3 looks much more aggressive, despite the fact that the 992 has some wonderfully extended arches. It's the wide body kit, as we mentioned in the full video. They only do one version now. I just think the GT3 is just so low, and its front spoiler is so incredibly aggressive that you have to say it's the more dynamic looking car. But there are some similarities. If we look at the wide body on the GT3, I don't know whether we can see that, you can see that well, and we compare that to the wide body on the 992. I'd say, despite the fact the dimensions are supposed to be very similar, the 992 at the back looks even wider than the GT3. I also think, and we try to take the spoilers out of this, because obviously the spoiler is always going to make the GT3 look incredibly aggressive. And also the air intakes that it has under the spoiler area itself, and in the sides, and in the on top of the engine cover. The air intakes, they lend an element of aggressiveness to it, and I think the sort of the red rimmed satin black wheels also make it look a little bit evil. And then it has a side skirt as well, which the 992 in this version certainly doesn't have. However, having said that, as an everyday car, I have to say to you that I think the 992 is a beautifully proportioned machine. I love the wraparound rear lights. I think there's a dynamism to that that really makes the car look worthy of remembering. It's the sort of thing you pick up on and notice on the road. Absolutely love the sports exhausts. I was getting a little bit bored of 4 exhausts in a car. I think that the 2 exhausts look really good. The R8 has always had 2 big exhausts. In V10 module, there's always had big exhausts, especially the R8, the Audi R8 Plus, the V10 Plus. But I like the rear high-level brake lights. They're not so high-level now, but they're beautifully integrated into the air intake at the back for the fans. And again, as you can see in the main video, you can see that there's nothing underneath. This is a plastic panel, and there's nothing underneath that other than a couple of fans. But it is an aggressive machine. For a standard 911, I think they've made it immediately memorable, which I think is very important indeed. Obviously, you'd expect the GT3 to be memorable, so I'm not sure that tells you that much, other than the fact that this is their road track variant. And then really at the front, that's where there are some major differences as well. You can see how low that spoiler is at the front of the car, with all its air intakes and its primary radiators behind those air intakes. Just, you know, you can see that this car is built for the track, really. And I love the GT product identification grille that's just below the badge and fitted into the bumper. I have to be honest with you and say I slightly prefer the fact that the bonnet itself is rounded, rather than if we come over to the 992 where it's a bit of a straight line. But that's not completely untypical of Porsche, because if you look at the 959, it has exactly the same styling that the 992 at the front has. 959 being the Porsche four-wheel drive supercar that competed with the Ferrari F40 back in the day, so 1980s. Do you know what I think? You know, the thing about the 992 is it's an elegant car. It looks like a real Porsche sports car, but at the same time, I think you could use this every day and not feel everybody be pointing at you and taking pictures of you. Whereas I think, you know, my view, I suppose, of the GT3, but primary because I'm out in it a bit and people do stop to take photographs of it and point at it, and, you know, maybe not to the same extent as the McLaren, but it still happens. Whereas I think this is a great everyday machine. With enough mix of elegant and aggressive lines to make you take note of the purist approach that Porsche have taken to the current generation of 911s. I mean, in some ways, forgetting about the arches, there's an element of 997 in the overall shape. And then, of course, the big point, if it'll let me in, the big point for the 992 is the new dash, which, as you can see, is about as modern as it comes. And actually, the way that the dash is designed harks back to the 60s and 70s Porsches, with the sort of the slab side here. But obviously, this one is bang up to date from an electronic viewpoint. Really nice. Love the way the handles come out, although it's a little bit of a nuisance because when they go back in, like they do there, you then have to either use the key to bring them out, or there's not really room for your fingers under here, so you have to pull. But again, you know, it's a lovely place to be. That's telling me it can't find the key. The key is in my pocket, but clearly I'm not far enough inside the car. And generally, as with all 911s, the GT3 being no exception, the visibility everywhere is exceptional for a sports car of this genre. So if we move into the inside of the 991, you can see obviously it's a different type of environment. Visibility is excellent. You have the same wraparound screens. Just put the lights on so they actually shine back. But, you know, in essence, it's still a lovely place to be. No question at all that the seats are a little bit harder to get in and out of, but again, with this type of car, you'd expect that. The chrono pack comes as standard in the GT3, but you don't get the button that comes around the steering on the bottom of the steering wheel to allow you to short circuit the Sports and Sports Plus, and indeed on the 992 the wet mode. So overall, I suppose you'd have to say different purpose cars. One is as much as home on the track as it is on the road, but perfectly usable on the road, and the other is meant as your your everyday machine, a car that you can take out and use as much as you want. And if the kids are young or you don't have kids, then, you know, it really is a car that you could have one of. They are both utterly beautiful cars. And I've been so impressed with the 992, just using it the whole time. You can see that the Panamera is sitting nicely alongside the McLaren. I haven't used it since I got the 992. There's just been no need, because the 992 does everything. Had my son out in the back the other day just to see what he thought, and he did swear he was never going in the back of it again. So I think that probably tells you, and that was only 5 miles, so I think that probably tells you even short distances for a drink, probably the rear seats are not manageable for adults. Okay guys, I'm going to sign off now, but I hope you find that interesting, and it is interesting to have them right beside each other. It gives you really does give you a feel. The other thing that people haven't mentioned, which I'm just wondering about, is I think the lights on the 991 are slightly further swept back than on the 992. I think they've been lifted slightly, as with the older 911s. I think they've been lifted forward slightly and more upright. I don't think that's an issue in itself at all. I mean, they both look good. And I suppose I slightly prefer the more swept back approach on the 991, but you know, at the end of the day, all these things come down to individual taste. Anyway guys, thanks for watching. It's been a really interesting week, and look forward to catching up with you on the next video. It's Ian from SS8000 Cars signing off. Thank you for watching.